welcome to another brand new edition of T Watches a Scary Movie. My name is T, and of course we are talking scary movies. I appreciate y'all tuning in for another brand new episode. Remember, new episodes are guaranteed to go up every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. But as I always have, new stuff coming out for you guys on my channel throughout the entire week. The best way to stay on top of all of that is to get subscribed to my link tree. And you can do that by going to linktr.ee/T Scary Movie. If you get subscribed to my link tree, that's going to give you access to my YouTube page for the video versions of the show, to your favorite podcasting platforms, the audio only versions of the show, to my Letterboxd page for my written reviews and movie rankings throughout the year, to my TikTok page for my short horror content, including movie news, movie premieres, stuff like that, to my Twitch page to catch me doing some horror gaming, which you're not going to want to miss because I'm going to jump into The Thing. I'm going to get the original game from 2002 here over the next month. And then finally, my Fangoria shop page where you can enjoy my 20% discount off anything in the Fangoria shop, including the physical magazine subscription for a year. So hit that subscribe button so you can get access to everything that I'm dropping here on my channel. Like this video, share it, subscribe, everything you got to do to get that out there, because the more subscribers I have, the more content that I'm putting out for all of you. You're not going to want to miss it because in July, we are going to be giving away a Tall Man Funko Pop. That's right, from Phantasm. We're going to give one of those away there, a Tall Man Funko Pop. I don't want any of y'all to miss that. Hit that subscribe button right now so you can get a chance to win that great prize. So what are we talking about here tonight? We took a little bit of time off from it, but we are jumping right back into the After Dark Horrorfest Year 3. I had already taken a look at the first 4 films of this festival. And y'all, you've said it a million times here before, I've covered this festival years 1 and 2 the last couple of years. It was time to hit year 3. These are all movies I've never had a chance to see here before, and I've done half of them at this point. It's time to hit film number 5. We only have a few films left, and so we are going to jump right on into it tonight. The film we are looking at is called From Within. And now, if you haven't seen the trailer for From Within before, this focuses on a small town that is besieged by a string of suicides. And while some of the townspeople attempt to figure out what is going on in their lovely abode, they do find out that it might not necessarily be suicide, but a malevolent force that is out to kill them all. And that is From Within. Now, I won't lie, this is the one that I was most excited for, mainly due to the cast who was involved in this film. Like, if you take a look at some of the names that are actually in this movie. So, for example, Adam Goldberg, Rumor Willis, Brett Robertson, Jared Harris, Shiloh Fernandez, and Thomas Dekker, my absolute favorite. This is a really, really good cast, and especially for an independent horror film, a lot of times that typically means that these guys are going to have bigger roles, because a lot of these guys back in the time when this film was produced, 2007, 2008 or so, they were just starting to make their place in Hollywood. Like, I think Jared Harris, out of all of them, was the only one who really had like this career already going, and his career has only gotten like bigger since. But like for the rest of these actors, this is when a lot of them were starting to make their splash. This before Shiloh, or around the time Shiloh Fernandez would have done Evil Dead, around the time Thomas Dekker would have been doing the Sarah Connor Chronicles, around the time Britt Robertson was doing all the numerous things that she was jumping into. Rumor Willis was making a name for herself. Adam Goldberg was knee deep in his fame at that point. It's kind of a crazy cast to get at that time. But that also leads to one of the biggest problems of this movie, is that everybody that you might be coming to watch in this film is pretty much taken out of it really, really quickly, really, really earlier on in it. And that's not anything anything new for a horror film. We are absolutely used to seeing plenty of horror films where that's the catch, to where you have that star power at the beginning to draw you in, they get killed, and then we focus on a bunch of up-and-comers who are going to carry the film instead. So it's not like that's coming from left field or anything, but at the same time, you take a look at who's in what role in this film, and a lot of it just comes off very, very superfluous. Like, they got him because they could really get him at that point. And specifically, I point out Rumor Willis, Jared Harris, and Shiloh Fernandez, to where, like, at least in the case of Rumor Willis and Shiloh Fernandez, like, this is at the kind of beginning of their career when they were still making names for themselves. So you kind of take, the roles that are out there for you. But with Jared Harris, it really left me in a loop. Like, man, like, y'all took this role, like these roles, for not much of anything here at all, honestly, which is not to spoil it, but we're past their 10-year rule. A lot of these folks get killed in this movie. I'm just going to be real about that, is that the majority of the names that we're talking about in this movie get killed off. And just a very, very interesting choice, because unfortunately, I don't think the rest of the cast is strong enough to really carry this film. You know, our lead character, Lindsay, who's played by Elizabeth Rice, does a decent job in the role that she's doing, but the problem is that that screen presence just isn't there to where we don't really care that much, in my personal opinion, to follow around everything that's going on. And a lot of the stuff that ends up happening to the characters in this town, it's not that she's directly involved, but her character does have a chance to kind of stop a few of these things that are going on, and she doesn't really exert herself to do that. And that's a writing choice, obviously. That's not an acting choice in the least bit, but the writers don't do Lindsay, the character of Lindsay, any favors here, because they don't really set up that she can have much of an influence or much of, not control, but I guess much of a meaning on the events that are happening throughout the film. Like, to be honest, while the movie is really set up to focus on Lindsay, if anything, it's really Thomas Decker's character, Aiden, who's more so like the central character of this film, because Aiden has a connection to everything that's going around in the town. And while, yeah, we don't really figure out what that connection is until a little bit later on in the film, when that happens, it's hard to really look at it and say that, well, Lindsay is absolutely the main character. Like, they're sharing kind of the lead role in this case. And it stinks, because after seeing it, it's hard to really look at it and say, man, they should have just like made Thomas Decker the only central character of this film. Lindsay doesn't really serve much of a purpose in here, and the other characters who do some of the bad things in this film, they do it because of her in certain spaces, but it's not really the drive of the movie. Everything focuses around Aiden and Aiden's family and some of the events that have taken place with them. And because of that, it's just weird that the focus then ends up shifting over to Lindsay, who's not as interesting of a character at all. Now, this film does focus a lot on suicide, so there's a lot of imagery in here that's not really going to be easy for some of you to get through watching. It's not to the extent of a film like The Happening, which I know The Happening gets ripped on all the time. I'm actually a fan of The Happening. I don't hate it as much as a lot of other people did. I got to see it in theaters. But the thing like that kind of changes it from this versus The Happening is that the reasoning that they explain for why exactly people are committing suicide is not more reasonable, but I think that a lot of you will stomach it a little bit easier than you did with The Happening, which is nature is fighting back against man, its greatest enemy, and therefore a few extra pheromones is basically turning them to do all this crazy shit. There is a good story behind why the townspeople here are really all committing these like mass suicides, and whether you believe that, like whether you buy into it or believe it or not, is kind of irrelevant. It's still a good explanation that comes behind it, which actually leads to a really good ending, because one of the few things the film does do is that it sets very strict rules about what's going on in this town, how it was caused, and how it's supposed to be ended in the first place. And then the film actually pulls in a rather clever twist at the last minute with the way they tie things off that I thought was actually really enjoyable. And that's saying a lot, because the film as itself is a bit of a chore to get through, honestly. Again, I think the big problem here is that the combination of writing for the character of Lindsay and the way that she's portrayed just doesn't make it that much of an interesting watch to stay on. And I think that had the film focused on Thomas Decker's Aiden instead, it would have been a much more interesting movie. I don't know if that means better movie, but it definitely would have been much more interesting. I feel we would have had a bigger investment into it, because Lindsay's not our moral compass for the film. She really isn't, honestly, because she's just somebody that's kind of standing by while things go on. Realistically, it's really we're seeing things through Aiden's eyes, and how Aiden kind of has to like break through the pain that he's going through to really make a change towards the end of the film. And I know we're past our 10-year rule, and I'm still avoiding giving some very heavy spoilers here, but that's very much for a reason, honestly. As I do feel that you know, watching the build up to it will kind of help explain the point that I'm trying to make. This is not one that I feel is going to be easily taken in just one view, honestly. It doesn't really work that well. And that's the downside with year 3 of the After Dark Horrorfest. I do feel that one interesting point that needs to be made here about From Within is that there are some very big similarities to last year's When Evil Lurks. Now, When Evil Lurks is a vastly superior film. It's disturbing, it's scary, it's gross, it's brutal, it's gripping, it's engaging. It's a really good movie that will inevitably be American made. You know, we're gonna get an American remake at some point, just like how we got the Speak No Evil remake, what, a year later, 2 years later? So we're gonna get a When Evil Lurks remake at some point. But the idea of and this is where I'm going to go into just a direct spoiler with it, contradicting what I was saying, but that there's this curse that's being enacted upon this town, and that from an outside perspective, or from one perspective, all this very much looks like it's a bunch of suicides that are going on, but in reality, there's something deeper and, like I said, something more malevolent at work here. So there are some big similarities to When Evil Lurks, but the thing is that When Evil Lurks had much better execution with this. I do think that From Within makes that concept very interesting, but the problem is that they just don't capitalize on it with the cast that they have. It's just not that interesting of a movie. Go watch When Evil Lurks instead if you're looking for the same kind of story told in a much better way. Is that I'm starting to realize that so many of these films maybe weren't reliant on star power, but used the star power that they had, I think, to hide some of the other noticeable flaws that these films really did have. And weirdly enough, From Within kind of boasts the biggest, like, well-known cast out of all the movies that we've watched through thus far. It's very well-rounded, but it just doesn't use these actors as well as they really could. There's not really much in the way of scares here. The imagery itself outside of the deaths isn't really that effective, unfortunately. And again, the notable cast that we do know just isn't in the film that much, honestly. And again, I'm a huge Thomas Dekker fan. I love Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles, and y'all have heard me say before that I am such a big fan of the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. The Dekker played such a great role in that as well too. But as a whole, the movie just doesn't work all that well, and that's sad because I think I was anticipating this one quite a bit, but it's a colossal letdown, unfortunately. So check it out for yourself. Let me know in the comment section if you get a chance to see this, what you thought of this film. How does it stack up against the other films that we've talked about thus far here in the After Dark Horrorfest Year 3? We still got 3 more films to go through, y'all, so hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything that I'm bringing down your way. But that's it for tonight. My name is T. We've been talking scary movies. Stay scared.
Boy here is a big fan of Fangoria. So, if you want to check out the world's best horror magazine that's out there, get a chance to get yourself your own subscription, which I just got my first one back in 2022, and I don't regret it for a second. But if you want your own Fangoria subscription, or you like the Fangoria merchandise, then head over to the Fangoria shop and use my link if you want to save yourself some money, folks. That's an easy one to remember. Just go to shop.fangoria.com/AXDEW. Again, that's shop.fangoria.com/AXDEW, or use my specific code AXDEW at checkout. You can save 20% off your entire order, and that implies 2 subscription and one-time orders as well. You don't want to miss out, folks, because with the magnitude of horror movies we've had released in the last few years, and with what we have on the horizon, Fangoria is going to be your #1 source for all that great, juicy, bloody information in the world of horror. So again, head to shop.fangoria.com. Hey there, folks! Thanks for tuning in to T Watch This Scary Movie. I appreciate you checking out another review or movie news, whether we're talking movies, TV shows, books, or games, whatever, it's all scary. Remember, you can check out new episodes every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on the YouTube page for video. That's youtube.com/C/Theron Reynolds Scary Movie. Again, youtube.com/C/Theron Reynolds Scary Movie. And you can check out the audio version on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Just search T Watch the Scary Movie or Twaza. Don't forget, my name is T. We've been talking scary movies. Stay scared.